the Stephen Fry interview where he calls God capricious, and Nasty has been doing the rounds again on social media. I think he actually had the interview a couple of years ago on Irish TV, if I'm right. It's where he says if he meets God, he's going to sort of poke him in the eye and say, "How dare you?" and that God, the Almighty, is capricious. And I wanted to address this because Stephen Fry is a very compelling person. He's the sort of chap that would be great to have round dinner, wouldn't he? Entertaining, intelligent, as English as cricket. And I think unlike some of the other militant atheists, I think the argument he comes with has some sort of gravitas, because it's very much a creed cur, whereas the sort of Dorking Hitchin, Sam Harris stuff, I find is kind of often very uninformed. By that I mean it's as if they never picked up a telephone to speak to anyone of serious intellectual holding within the religious world. So you can read something like the Dawkins Delusion and say, really, did you not ask about what people of faith, particularly Christians, believe? Because the God that you're holding up is not the God that I believe in anyway. So we're talking at kind of cross purposes, and that's kind of intensely frustrating. There's a bit of this in the Stephen Fry interview, but I think first of all, I felt the way that the thing was edited, and who knows what his involvement is in this. It was as if one was given the impression that this wonderful, brilliant actor is like the first person to have ever come up with this dilemma, or this anger against God, and brilliant for him, and as if it's a revelation and epiphany for the rest of us, and that's bewildering, really, because you only have to look at 2,000 years of Christianity, to look at Judaism, certainly something like the Book of Job, which deals with this in a very kind of punchy, raw way. Where Job, for instance, is stripped of everything. He's in the equivalent of a bedsit, because there's this wager between God and Lucifer as to will he still be pious, will he still be righteous, if everything is taken away from him. Job has it out with God, and God's reply is equally kind of robust and gritty, and we see that in other wisdom parts of the scripture, like the Psalms. The Psalms have all kind of human emotion and range, and in fact much of the scripture, particularly I think the Hebrew scripture, is not saccharine. It has not been edited. Human thoughts about God are all there, warts and all. And so that's frustrating when the good Stephen Fry gives out as if we never thought about that, of course, and it makes it. I think in that sense he does himself a disservice, because what would have been more interesting would have been to have had him in a room with a number of the great religious thinkers, and for him to have seen the dialogue. But of course that kind of considered conversation doesn't make good television. It's much funnier, say, to go to America. I think he did this in his series Fry's America, and see the weird and the wacky, the outrageous kind of Bible Belt preacher, handling snakes, or doing some kind of weird exorcism. That makes great TV. But talking to maybe a professor in Oxford or Louvain, or a monastic, like say Sister Wendy, or someone like Professor Alistair McGrath, who's a great intellect on C.S. Lewis, and probably one of our best theologians at the moment in Britain. That doesn't make good TV. obviously there's a lot to be explored in Fry's Creed of Kerr, and again, you know, I think it kind of. I pause because what I want to say is, you know, in the sort of 20 centuries of Christianity, some of the best things that have come out of the religious tradition have engaged with this seriously rather than giving them the brush off. You know, what's sometimes called the fifth gospel, the works of Dante. How far would you go to hell for yourself and for the one you loved? What depths would you plummet? And what heights would you rise to? What firewalls would you go through? You know, that's been the sort of basis for art, for poetry, for hymnody, and I think to kind of ignore that is to do a disservice, really, to much of what is good about you know, the West, for instance, and our kind of way of doing things. I suppose that what Fry is really kind of riled at is that the world is not perfect, and that there is sort of chaos, even with the kind of even within the order of things, and that's frustrating. But I think what's brilliant about the Christian spirituality, you know, is it boots us out of Eden. And invites us to, you know, to drag our cross up the hill and find Mount Zion, and that the heart of this earthly life it has to be an embracing of the chaos and suffering and the kind of the things that we muck up, as well as the things that are mucked up around us, and that. Somehow that in that reality we truly begin to find who we are, and who we are meant to be, and that like Christ, who becomes our kind of our wounded healer, we find on that journey companions, and we find that we're not alone, and I think to kind of ignore that, or to kind of not to go, is to kind of airbrush something essential out of life. So yes, I take on board his Stephen Fry's point, but I think it has been explored to some depth, and is being explored. And really, what is needed is not so much a kind of a blast against people of religious faith or even against God, but a conversation and a dialogue, and we might find that it's kind of more interesting than we